powerful episode of AIBiz. I'm your host Avik, and today we are diving into a world that every modern leader cannot afford to ignore, which is the digital landscape. Yep. And in a time when authority is built as much online as it is in the boardroom, how can CEOs position themselves as trusted industry voices? How is AI rewriting the rules of marketing, and what does it mean for the authenticity? And also, at the top, the most importantly, what are the biggest mistakes leaders make when trying to scale their digital presence? And how can they transform visibility into the true growth opportunities? There are a lot of questions, right, dear listeners? So, to help us unpack this, I'm thrilled to welcome today's guest. Please welcome Adrian Newman. So, welcome to the show, Adrian.
Thanks for having me, Avik.
Amazing. So, dear listeners, before we delve deep into the discussion, I would love to introduce you with Adrian. So, Adrian is the CEO of Numero Uno Web Solutions in the Greater Toronto area. So, with more than 25 years of experience in digital and direct marketing, he has done it all, like copywriting, design, database management, production, and of course, SEO. Since 2017, he's been leading Numero Uno, a company he helped launch in 2012, helping businesses scale their visibility and revenue online. And Adrian isn't just about the theory. He's about the practical, actionable strategies that actually deliver results. And when he's not helping businesses grow, you will probably find him on the golf course. So, cheering at a Blue Jays game with his kids or relaxing at a cottage up north. So, I'll not take much of your time, dear listeners. Let's get started. Welcome to the show again, Adrian.
Thank you. Hey, glad to be here.
Amazing. So, like I was mentioning about the CEOs as authorities. So, I mean, in your experience, like, what is the difference between a CEO who simply runs a company and the one who positions themselves as an industry authority? So, what does the, uh, what is the difference? I mean, if you can share.
Well, I think that the big difference is how a brand is positioned, and if a leader is going to be an integral part of the branding of a company, or if they don't need to be part of the branding of the company. And there are prime examples of both. Like for example, Elon Musk is a big part of the branding of Tesla. At the same time, if you look at a company, for example, like McDonald's, nobody really cares who the CEO is so much, unless, of course, that something happens that is very newsworthy. But really, essentially, that brand stands on its own. So I think nowadays, if a business is starting up or if a business wants to scale and grow, I think being a leader and being part of the brand now more than ever is more important.
Mhm. Exactly, exactly. So, I mean, do you think that authority today is more about the perception management, like appearing visible, or is it still about the substance and expertise?
I still think it's both.
Okay.
And the reason is our new world of social and our access to the inner workings of a company and the access to the C-suite and the boardrooms is more prevalent than ever. So in the past, you wouldn't know anything about a leadership of a company, even if it was a large company. Now with
Mm.
smartphones recording all the time, social media, the ability to for a leader to get their name out there and their face and their message and their personality across is more prevalent. So I feel that like you need to have that authenticity, you need to have that authority because you have to know what you're talking about. You have to show confidence, and if you're building yourself up as part of that brand, you need to have that as well.
Very true. Exactly. So, uh, okay, like, um, definitely, it's such an important point because many leaders assume that authority is about just the visibility, but without the substance you mentioned, it quickly falls apart.
Mhm.
So, and it also reminds me of the old saying that visibility gets you in the room, but authority keeps you there. So
Correct.
that's
Correct.
something really, really true. I mean, yeah. And so when I talk about the AI and the marketing rules, like AI is everywhere right now these days. So like rewriting the copies, automating gappings, even the predicting the consumer behavior. So from where you sit, how is AI? I mean, how is it like AI truly changing the rules of SEO and the marketing? What do you have to say?
So it's changing the way things happen on both ends. On the first of all, on the back end of an agency or a marketing team, the ability now to come up with more ideas, the ability to ask AI for strategy plans, to ask AI to maybe get some content ideas is makes things so much easier and allows things to move at a quicker pace. On the flip side, on the user end, okay, how AI is affecting the end user, because when you're marketing, you always have to think like your end user, you think like your customer.
Mm,
It's giving more answers to
mm,
questions than ever before. So I look at the way it's changed now
mm,
is not so much people are looking for rankings and seeing who's at the
mm,
top of the ranking for a very generic search term or even for something more of a specific search term, but it's
mm,
acquiring the answers to the questions that they're asking.
and
Where can I buy um, a lawnmower that's going to be fuel efficient? Where can I get the best espresso in Hamilton, Ontario? And AI is now the one that's
mm,
giving you that answer. So, when you go onto Google now, there's, of
mm,
course, first of all, the AI snippet, which is pulling from the content of various websites, of various social sites, of pretty much everything that is online, directories and everything like that, and then putting it into answer format. But there's also now, of course, AI mode in Google where you can just use that and get those answers. So that's the big change as far as I'm seeing over the past, year and a half, where it's all about providing the right answer to the question that your ideal customer is asking.
exactly. Yep. So, like, do you think that there's a risk that leaders become overly reliant on the AI tools and uh, start sounding kind of robotic, or maybe worse, interchangeable?
Yes. Yeah, I think it's like anything else. When some kind of automation comes in, the first thing that usually happens is laziness. I'm not saying all, like
Yeah.
laziness in terms of anything, but it's almost like complacency that the machine will do the work. And that's not always the case. And in generally that's not the case now because you can get an AI to come up with topics to write strategy. But if you just throw it out there without reviewing it, you will notice, and I notice this too, and I do testing, and look, I use AI, on a regular basis to do things for me. But if I don't review it myself, or even have somebody else review it after I review it, I don't. I want to say about 80% of the time I will find errors because there's still the contextual part of humanity, the human side of things that doesn't come through an AI. Plus, if, for example, everybody starts using AI for their content on their website or for the content on their social media, everything is going to look the same. Everything is going to sound the same, and what it's going to happen is AI pulls from the existing internet. So if AI is pulling AI content to create AI content, you can see what happens. It's almost like taking a copy of a copy of a copy of a copy. The quality goes down after every copy. So originality and humanity is still very important. So anybody who's running AI to do things, automate things in their business, it is a time saver. Don't get me wrong, but you still need to put effort into it. So something that might have taken you 2 hours before, you might need to put in a half an hour of reviewing, of changing. And then, of course, the other thing too is, a lot of leaders, a lot of people who are using AI. I'm not saying everybody, but there's a good amount don't know how to prompt AI properly. So
Mm.
they spend a lot of time with trial and error. They're not getting the right things. They're not really creating the prompts that they need to have to get the best product outputted to them.
Exactly, exactly true. So, like, uh, uh, authenticity cannot be outsourced, which I feel like.
Mhm.
And what I hear you saying is AI should enhance, not replace the human touch. So that's a line like many leaders still struggle to walk. So that's definitely. And yeah, so and we talk about the pitfalls, right? Like the common traps. Uh, you have worked with like countless businesses. So what are the biggest mistakes that CEOs make when trying to scale their digital presence? I mean, if you can share.
That's a great question, and I in the in the I guess now 8.5 years that I've been actively doing this business, and of course in the 13.5 years that I've been involved, the number one thing I've seen is a lack of consistency.
Mm,
What happens sometimes is there's no consistent posting online. There's no consistent updates of a website. There's no consistent messaging being sent out through social media.
mm,
And one of the biggest mistakes that any business can do is to be inconsistent and to stop doing things. And I've been guilty of it. And I don't want to like sound like I'm preaching because I've done it before where I have stopped producing content. I got either distracted or it just fell by the wayside, and it really made things worse for the business. And once I started to restart, it took a while, but then things started to move again. So the biggest pitfall is not being on top of it, not being consistent enough to be posting content, to be approving content. And when you use an agency, and like my agency specifically, and I'm sure other if you talk to other marketing agencies, we're not just a vendor, we're a partner. And I work with my clients. I work, in tandem. We meet on a regular basis to go over content strategy, to go over social strategy, to go through keywords, to go through reporting and everything like that, to make sure that we're consistently on board. And sometimes if you fall off that schedule and things kind of get pushed by the wayside, so they might say, okay, I can't meet with you this week. Let's do it next week. And then next week turns into next month, and next month turns into 6 months. And all of a sudden things start going off the rails because we don't get input from the client. That is where things fall off.
exactly. So, uh, and if you had to choose, what was, I mean, doing nothing online or doing it badly?
Wow. Eh, so doing, well, neither, obviously, but if
Mhm.
there was one thing I would say do nothing versus doing badly. If like,
Okay.
you can, like I look at it this way, right? If your goal is to get up to number 10 and you're at 0, right?
Mm,
It's easier to go from 0 to 10 than it is to go from -5 to 10. Like if you start burying yourself. Okay, and there are things that you can do to get yourself in trouble, to do things poorly. Like if you're doing email marketing and you're doing, you're spamming things, if you are alienating your audience by putting out substandard content that isn't engaging, maybe it's something that's also just unattractive, where people are unsubscribing to your YouTube channel, or they're basically ignoring you on Instagram, so therefore you're no longer showing up in their feed. It can be destructive. So I guess if I had to pick, I would say do nothing instead of doing something badly.
Exactly. Exactly.
But I
And
wouldn't recommend either. I would
yeah.
not recommend either.
Okay. Understood. Yeah. So I mean that's so real because doing it badly not only wastes the money but can actually damage credibility as well. So
100%. And credibility is,
yeah.
is key.
Mm, exactly. And like visibility for the sake of visibility doesn't always translate into revenue. So
Yep.
uh I mean according to you, like what's the practical actionable steps should CEOs take to turn online presence into a kind of real growth opportunities?
Well, I think the first thing is when you're creating content, always think in your head, what value am I giving? And even if it's free content or if it's paid content or whatever it is, it has to have value. And you should always be thinking, am I giving value? And I think sometimes people think, well, I'm entertaining and then therefore I'm going to get the vanity metric. So my video might get a lot of likes or I might go viral, let's just say, or what have you.
Hmm.
But the most important thing is to create value for your reader or your viewer to
Hmm.
show that you are an authority because Google has, what's called EEAT, expertise, experience, authoritativeness, and trust. You want to make sure that you check all those boxes with every piece of content that you're making, and then it provides value. That at the very least, somebody sits there and says, "Wow, I just watched this 2-minute video or 1.5-minute video, and I got something out of it. And this person obviously knows what they're talking about. And when it comes time down the road that I need a service or a product that matches this person, that I'm at the very least going to investigate their company. So I think the key thing is just adding value to everything that you put out there on the internet.
Hmm. Got it. And so like when you say growth,
Mhm.
uh, do you mean strictly revenue or uh, can visibility also translate into things like the stronger partnerships, talent attractions, or the thought leadership influence?
Yeah, I think that I mean both. Like revenue is obviously, the driving force behind growing a
Mm.
business, right? You can't do anything without funds. But at the same time, if you become a thought leader and an authority, you start making connections, you start being asked to speak. What it does, it does help your reputation and really everything kind of all filters into acquiring a customer. Right? So, for example, if you're posting something online, and let's just say, for example, you're representing a charity that's personal to you, and you say,
Okay.
I'm doing, a walk to raise money for cancer research, and you say, this is why I'm doing it, and I urge you to do the same. What it might happen is you might start getting some feedback from colleagues and some other people outside the outside your inner circle, and then maybe you're asked to, hey, can you speak you know about CEOs giving back and doing charitable work at a conference, and then you speak at a conference. Maybe you're going to fundraising galas, and you meet some other
Yeah.
people, and at some point down the road, they become, a client, or maybe some sort of business partnership is created. So
Mm.
it's always beneficial, in my opinion, no matter what, as far as the growth goes, is to get the word out there, get yourself out there, put yourself up as an authentic and authoritative source with
Okay.
personality, and you will see that growth happen, not only personally and corporately.
Mm. Exactly. Yep. Lovely. And it really makes sense. And also, it's not just about like chasing the dollars but about building an ecosystem of the opportunities.
Mhm.
So, uh,
The money
so
will come.
but
The money will
exactly.
come, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, it all feeds each other in the foundation. It's strong. So, yeah, definitely. Yeah. And when you're talking about this, like, I would also bring some of the perspectives from the groups and all. Uh, So it might sound contradictory, but actually not. Like uh, branding and the business success or the focus. So some critics argue that CEOs spend too much time on the personal branding, posting on LinkedIn, chasing media features. So when they should be focused on running the company. So how do you respond to that?
It all depends on the size of the business. Um, look, I do both.
Mhm.
So I put myself out there as a personal brand and try to drum up, exposure for both myself and for the business to
Mhm.
grow. Um, I feel like you should be working, on your business as opposed to in your business. So let's just say this, it's easier and more effective to hire somebody to help you run your business than it is to help to have somebody be the face of your business, if that makes any
Mhm.
sense. Right? So if I'm gonna say, "Look, you know what? I'm gonna hire somebody to be a COO and operate the business and do all the day-to-day things and everything like that," I'm still obviously involved, then I'm gonna do that while I then make sure that the business gets the exposure and the growth opportunities to help, to help grow it even further and hopefully, take it to a level that I want it to be at. So I don't like, obviously,
Mhm.
if they're dropping the ball on, the day to day and the business is suffering in the back, but at the front, everything looks great because they're putting on a smiley face and doing all the social
Mhm.
posting, but they're neglecting other things. Well, obviously that's not good. And I would have to believe that that would happen regardless. That it wouldn't happen because they're too quote unquote overwhelmed with branding and social.
Exactly. Exactly. And I mean, there is a risk of CEOs overexposing themselves. So where their personal brand overshadows the actual business brand. So what do you say?
Mhm. I don't think I there was a book I read once, and you'll have to forgive me because I don't remember the author's name. It
Mm.
was about Donald Trump, and it was called "There's No Such Thing as Overexposure." And like it or not, he has overexposed himself. But
Mm.
depending on who you are, and in his opinion, his brand has not suffered because he still considers himself to be very successful, and he has put his name out there in real estate, in entertainment at the time. This is a book that was written, I think, in the late '90s, early 2000s, so before he got political. It all depends on what your message is
Mm.
and how you are exposing yourself. The it it's a fine line, I guess, Avik, that I'm trying to say is, yes, you can do too much. Yes, you
Mm.
can, um, be I guess, over exhausted when it comes to your branding. But like I said before, it's
Mhm.
all about value. So if you post on LinkedIn 12 times a day, but
Mm.
everything you post has some kind of value proposition to it, where you are giving at least some sort of value. You're not just sitting there going,
Uh,
"Hey, I had a coffee today and oh, it was bitter. Follow me for
mm.
more." Yeah,
Yeah.
that's overexposure. You keep doing that, that's useless. But if you're going and you're saying, "Hey, you know what? I had a coffee today and it was bitter, but here's what happened. I went back there and they said, no problem.
Mhm.
They gave me a new one and it was better." And that to me is great customer service. So remember, whenever you're dealing with a customer, remember, if you provide 10 out of 10 customer service, you're going to have a better reputation online. You might even get a great Google review out of it, and it's only going to help you. So you're maybe taking the same story and you're adding value to it by giving something after the fact.
Exactly. Mm. And any suggestion or advice you'd like to share with the listeners today?
Well, in general,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Don't if whatever you're doing, don't do it just for the sake of doing it. Have a plan.
Mm.
Make sure, like I said, if you're creating content, do a content calendar, put some thought behind it. You can record things on your phone instantly. So sometimes I have ideas. I pull the car over or I stop what I'm doing and I record a video and say something. Then maybe I'll look back at it and say, you know what? This is not valuable, or this is not something that I think my core audience would enjoy, and I delete it. At the same time, there's other things that come up that I'm like, this is great, and I give it to our production team, and they'll post it for me, and they'll produce it and clean it up a little bit. So I guess my idea, my main tip is don't be shy to consistently create valuable content, but at the same time, be picky and selective when broadcasting it.
Mm. Exactly. Exactly true. Amazing. Amazing. So, Adrian, this is such an insightful conversation. And thank you so much for breaking down what can often feel like a kind of confusing, jargon filled space into something approachable and the actionable as well. So, uh, for all the listeners, the big takeaway here is this: in a world shaped by AI, SEO, and the digital noise, authority is no longer optional for the CEOs, but authority isn't about shouting the loudest. It's all about showing up with clarity, consistency, and authenticity. So, Adrian, if someone wants to connect with you, what will be the great medium to connect?
So, emailing me would be great at a.newman at numerounoweb.com. Visiting my website at numerounoweb.com. I'm also
Mhm.
very active on LinkedIn. Please feel free to find me on LinkedIn. It's Adrian Newman. I also have a YouTube channel that you can check out. It's at Numero Uno Web.
Amazing. Amazing. Great. So, dear listeners, I'll put all the details into the show notes for your easy reference. And until next time, this is your host, Avik, and this has been AIBiz. Stay visible, stay authentic, and keep leading with the intention. So, thank you so much.